An ending that we all saw coming from a mile away. But is that fair to the author? That is a discussion we will get into in just a moment on this review. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another short story discussion. This short story comes to us from Edgar Allan Poe, the sick and twisted mind of Edgar Allan Poe, for a short story called William Wilson. This video will appear in several different playlists here on the channel. Number 1, the Edgar Allan Poe playlist. Number 2, the short story discussion playlist. Number 3, the Horror Fest 24 playlist. 31 videos with horrific intentions in 31 days of October 2024, but also the horror playlist, a new playlist comprised of videos for the horror genre. Now, this video will contain a So What Happened recap of the video, literary criticism of the short story itself, and a writer's corner, where we talk about some of the writerly notes we can take from this short story. So, what happened? Our speaker is a man who will only identify himself as William Wilson. But he's not. He's not really William Wilson, is he? He's something close to William Wilson. Also, he has a troublemaker past, so that's kind of why he's going by William Wilson, but there is another reason he's going by William Wilson. He then tells a story about while he was in school, he met another boy named William Wilson, or at least something close. Basically, William Wilson anyway. Speaker William Wilson becomes incensed at the other William after breaking into and eventually breaks into his room and finds out that William even looks like him. Does that in the middle of the night, see? And the other, so he decides to leave school. The other, William Wilson, decides to leave school shortly thereafter. Then Speaker William putzes around life for a little bit before deciding to go back to Eton and Oxford, where he returns to his nefarious ways, the nefarious ways of his youth, and he begins cheating people. Cheating people, for example, in cards. We find Speaker William Wilson playing a game of cards and cheating people out of money while he does it, when a mysterious figure appears, and it turns out it is the other William, and he's there to tell the other players that William the Speaker is cheating them. Then William moves around a lot, has to leave school again, decides to move around a lot, before finding himself at a festival in Rome. At this festival, there is a woman that has caught his eye who seems to be well-to-do, and he's trying to seduce her. Problem is, she is another man's wife. Other William shows up and intervenes. Speaker William then challenges him to a duel by saber and easily wins. Suddenly, and this is maybe the weirdest part of this short story, suddenly a strange mirror appears, and William Wilson, the speaker, sees his own reflection bloody and pale. It seems he had harmed the self. So the obvious sort of literary criticism to get into here is the fact that the second William Wilson is the idea of the conscience, is the idea of guilt. He is going around and fixing all of the problems that our speaker William Wilson has set up. What he does in the process here is ruin A, Speaker William's reputation, and B, Speaker William's ability to cheat other people going forward. This is sort of an extreme way to paint the picture that simply having a conscience, simply feeling bad for doing wrong, is enough to ruin the individual within you that will do said wrong, but it's not enough to stop that guy. It's an interesting sort of so you see it coming a mile away. I'm not saying you don't, but it is an interesting way to explore the idea of it's an interesting way to explore the idea that having a conscience, being a human in that fashion, makes life more difficult. Surely, life would be easier in the short run for William the Speaker if he was able to just get over on people. He seems fairly advanced at being able to get over on people. He talks about some of the tricks of his trade during that card game. I believe it was at Oxford. So, having this conscience on him and trying to solve the problems that he creates just makes his presence itself the problem. Very interesting dynamic, very interesting way to go about describing it, though I have to say the short story itself was a little bit laborious, and I'll get to that in the writer's corner. The only other thing, I think that's pretty much the only literary criticism to be made here. I'm sure I'm sure if you dug enough, you could find some more stuff to really talk about, but I think that's pretty cut and dry what this short story is about. Obviously, you can put all sorts of things in there that you want. You just have to spend a little bit of time to do it. The only other thing I have to talk about in the literary criticism section is something that I thought was a rather astute observation from the text. But the house, how quaint an old building was this! To me, how veritably a place of enchantment. There was really no end to its windings, to its incomprehensible subdivisions. It was difficult at any given time to say with certainty upon which of its two stories one happened to be. From each room to every other room there was sure to be found 3 or 4 steps, either in ascent or descent. Then the lateral branches were innumerable, inconceivable, and so, returning in upon themselves to that most exact ideas, to that our most exact ideas in regard to the whole mansion were not very far different from those which we pondered upon infinity. During the 5 years of my residence there, I was never able to ascertain with precision in what remote locality lay the little sleeping apartment assigned to myself and some 18 or 20 other scholars. I don't know if you've ever been in a building like this, where the rooms are kind of set up to where they don't make quite sense. They're not quite sensical. They are not evenly sized. That there is that, as Poe says there's a little bit of there are stairs out of or into every room so that nothing is really on the level. When I was much younger, I did a show, a local show called Music from the Back Room. Never really went anywhere, but it was an interesting experience. And the building that we did the show in was, I believe, a Lewis Curtis building. It was so Frank Lloyd Wright-esque sort of building. And this was one of the quirks of the building. There was this weird hallway sort of in the middle of rooms, not down the middle of the corridor. There were steps into and out of every room. There were sort of hidden compartments in the building itself. It was just a real wild place. It was only 2 stories. It was only a handful of rooms and a balcony, but it was super confusing and people got lost all the time. There was a woman who came to see the show one time, a friend of mine, and I said, hey, after the show, I'll be upstairs in the, like where all the editing was getting done and all of this stuff. And she tried to find me afterwards, stay after and find me, and we would hang out there. She got lost in the side of the building, a place I didn't even know exist, existed, and it was this weird side that sort of went down some steps in a hallway that was it, it led to this really weird place behind the bar that was downstairs. I don't know how she got there. Eventually, I found her, sort of by tapping on the walls. But it was just a real weird experience. And those types of buildings are super disorienting, uh, regardless of whether or not you are prepared to be in them. It's just a strange thing that I wanted to sort of pass on from this writer's corner. What are some notes that we can take from this as a writer? Probably everyone saw the ending to this coming, that the William Wilsons are basically the same person here. But do we only see that coming? The question is, do we only see that coming because as a member of the modern audience, we have been troped out. We've talked about seeing dead people. We've talked about any of the other twists and turns at the ends of thousands of movies, the M. Night Shyamalan endings, all of these movies that it turns out, oh, the narrator wasn't a real person. He was one and the same with another character. We have seen this type of thing 1,000 times. We've seen it time and again. Is there something quite like this, some trope like this that does not exist yet, but would be so easily catch-onable that you could write it? We look at this Edgar Allan Poe short story sort of with a little bit of, oh yeah, well, I saw that coming. Is it possible that during the time when this was written, people didn't see it coming? That's one question. Another question I have is, even if the audience for whom this story was written, the time period in which this story was written, maybe they saw it coming too, but they had different allowances for their fictions. Are there things that we allow today as an audience that we do see coming? Certain cliches that while we understand they are on their way, we still sort of enjoy the turn. If neither of those things are the case, what are the odds that a short story like this, where there is a twist at the end, can be not 100% novel, but still not cliche? Today, this short story is cliche. I am willing to believe that when it was published, that ending was novel. Is there a middle ground between the two? I'm not sure there is. I think that perhaps something that is novel moves immediately into the realm of cliche the moment the magic is visible. The moment you see the zipper on the monster's costume, the jig is up. Is it possible that that is what is going on here? The other thing that I have to talk about, and I'm sorry that neither of these Writers' Corner criticisms are particularly precise. I have to admit that this short story was just very laborious for me. I don't think there was a single paragraph herein that I did not have to reread, because I would start reading it and just sort of trail off. I would start reading it and be disinterested a sentence into the paragraph. My eyes would keep moving, but I was not home. I don't know what the exact answer for that is. This short story was not particularly worded much differently than any of the other Edgar Allan Poe you are likely to ever read. Certainly not much different than any of the Edgar Allan Poe that I have read. I wonder if it is because that big idea at the end of the short story that William Wilson and William Wilson are the same William Wilson was so obvious so early that I just checked out of the story. I think that is a risk when you have a narrative that is based completely around one trick of the trade. So that, I think, is a pretty valid, if it is slightly unintelligible, criticism that could help your writing in the future, my writing in the future, anyone who decides to write in the future after having read a short story like William Wilson by Edgar Allan Poe. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as that tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.